We're live.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Tyler Fornes. We have Deshaun Vaughn back from his heroic excursion into finals, and we have producer Dave. I am on the tail end of COVID-19. I am feeling pretty good. Not quite beer ready yet, but I have my body armor ready to give me some electrolytes. But we do have a fantastic new sponsor, which we will tell you about right as soon as Dave rolls the intro footage. We're going to talk combine. We're going to talk what it means moving forward, the big talkers coming from the event, and we're going to really try to squeeze in a mock draft after failing the previous weeks. Stick around. We're going to have ourselves a good time tonight.
Welcome to Climbing the Pocket's Mock Draft Mondays. Who will the Vikings pick, and who's your favorite choice?
Welcome. It is Mock Draft Monday, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Tyler Fornes. With me is my co-host, Deshaun Vaughn, and producer Dave in his beautiful little man cave down in Texas. Gentlemen, how are we feeling today?
Oh, we feel great. Had some beautiful weather in Maryland. Didn't really get to enjoy it, but it was nice to walk outside and not be rained or snowed on or be freezing cold. It's a nice little change.
Oh, absolutely. Dave, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing okay. We had some beautiful weather yesterday, and then a cold front moved through last night. But hey, that's life. Stuff happens. You live with it. And when you get older, you feel it even more. So, until then, let's talk about what happened last week in Indianapolis.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, due to my COVID-19, I guess this is kind of fortunate. I was able to watch the whole thing. I watched the entire coverage on the NFL Network start to finish. And let me tell you, at a certain point, you get real sick of watching guys run around in Under Armour. It's there's a lot of information that you can gather, and it was really nice that I had the luxury of being able to kind of watch because I know my colleagues from NBC Sports Edge, Thor Nystrom and Eric Froton were down there, and they were gathering information, and they were talking to players, talking to media, talking to personnel from teams, and they did a tremendous job. If you have an opportunity to go follow them, they have a lot of their work on their timeline. You will learn a lot here from them as you will from us here tonight. But being able to watch from home and be able to see how these guys are performing in the drills and how they react to their performance, it really gets some analysis from Daniel Jeremiah, who, for my money, is one of the two smartest people when it comes to the NFL draft in the entire world, with the other one being Dane Brugler of The Athletic. Hearing his commentary was tremendous, and Rich Eisen is just fun. He's fun. And it was just a tremendous broadcast. Gentlemen, did you get to watch much of it at all here this week?
No, I think I just watched kind of the recaps, some of the drills. I didn't get to watch the whole thing. I just really just trying to keep an eye out for some of the guys to where I think like athletic testing like mattered a bit. Because there's some guys where like tape is tape and you don't really care what they test. There's some guys where athletic testing will actually make a difference. And I feel like that's like some of the guys I was kind of keeping an eye out for.
Oh, and I didn't catch all of it. I caught bits and pieces. My favorite part, of course, was Malik Willis, but I also like some of those defensive ends or edge guys and looking at their split speeds in that first
Boy,
10,
everybody with them.
they
The
were
big guys was flying this week. Flying. Yeah, offense and defense.
Mhm.
They were big guys just flying this year.
There were some defensive guys that ran faster than some running backs.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
running backs overall didn't have the greatest showing here at the combine. Obviously, you have Breece Hall, who ran like an alien. Really gave off like Jonathan Taylor vibes as far as what his workout was a couple years ago. I didn't think that as far as like from a size perspective, we were going to see anything like him, or even going as far back as Adrian Peterson. I didn't think we were going to necessarily see that again here moving forward, just because of how impressive some of those numbers were. 40-inch vertical, 4.36 in the 40, just gnarly good numbers. Stuff that if you were to build a guy on a creative player on Madden, that's what you would give him. And just really, really good stuff for the young man, and his potential in the league is going to be interesting. Kenneth Walker had a banner day as well. 5'9", over 200 pounds, and he ran a 4.39 40, really showing that at the speed that you saw on tape wasn't necessarily a mirage, and he has the size to really be able to handle a full workload in the NFL, both of which really, really nice to see. But let's kind of divert. We'll talk some Malik Willis today, because Malik Willis probably had the best week of anybody there. Nick, we're going to talk about that kind of stuff here later, because I would love a wide receiver at 12. And
speaking of wide receiver, there was that kid from NDSU that really helped his draft stock with his 40
let's start there
and his
then.
Jumps and everything else.
Well, let's start with Christian Watson. Christian Watson, and I was saying it a couple weeks ago, if he had an Ohio State helmet, he'd be a guaranteed top 20 pick, because of what they do at North Dakota State. If you don't know their offense, they're a humongous rushing team. They run multiple concepts, inside, outside zone, man gap power. They do a lot of counters, pulling of guards and tackles consistently. They run anything and everything up there. And then they do a lot of shot plays with their receivers. Well, even when they had Trey Lance, they didn't necessarily throw a ton. He threw for less than 3,000 yards and 28 touchdowns in his one season as a starter. That's just not who they are. They're a phenomenal running team. So Watson really didn't get a huge chance to shine, but when he did, he compared himself to Deebo Samuel in interviews. The way he was used, the skills that he possesses, and they were giving him at 6'4", 210 pounds handoffs in the backfield. This guy can do everything. He can sink into his routes with his hips. He can get jump balls. He can outrun everybody on the field. If Watson played at a program that really prioritized receiver play and throwing the football, he'd be a top 20 pick guaranteed. Big thing for him getting on the field early and often, he's a tremendous run blocker. So you're going to feel comfortable having him as a wide receiver too early on, even if he's still a little bit raw with the receiving elements of the game, because he can block. He's not only good at it, he's a huge effort guy with blocking too. He was sealing edges at the Senior Bowl consistently. Like, that's the kind of talent this kid has. Very, very impressed with what he brings to the table. And if he's available at 46, I would jump on it. I wouldn't even care if you took a wide receiver at 12. That's the kind of guy you want on your football team.
Wow. That's something. Who else?
So somebody that kind of someone that kind of jumped off the page of me, kind of a relatively unknown guy, Amari Barno. The kind of unknown edge who I thought was a linebacker, converted linebacker, who ran like a 4.36, which I think was like the fastest at the position since like 2003 or something insane like that. So I love when you're at the when you're watching the combine, you see like this guy just have insane testing, and it makes you go back and just watch tape and see what he can do. So I think the last time we saw something like that, I want to say it was like Chase Claypool, when we saw him come to the combine, had insane testing and made everybody go watch to see what he was about. So Amari Barno, 6'6", tremendous length, but he's like a wire frame. But for a 3, he reminded me a little bit of like Hassan Reddick when he came out. I think Hassan Reddick was like 6'4", 6'5". He was wiry. He didn't have a lot of weight to him, but ended up being a great player. So I think this player, Amari Barno, is like a 3rd or a 4th round pick, maybe a late round gem that you can take into a 3-4 defense, a 3-4 outside linebacker, and do some stuff with him. I was really impressed with the way he was able to move sideline to sideline, and the way he was able to have some kind of bend to his game despite being 6'6" and super long. So that was one of the guys that really kind of stood out to me a little bit from the combine.
You got to remember, we're going to do
Barrow's a really
combination of defense, not just 3-4, but also a little bit of 4-3.
Oh yeah, he could do it all. He can. So I don't want to say he could do it all, because obviously he's a raw prospect, but he has the potential to do multiple things throughout the entire defense, to where if we are running a hybrid defense, I think he can fit in, play maybe 400 snaps his first year.
So Barno, I kind of want to dive into this really quick because it's really important when talking about the combine. Barno had a great workout, but his film is not that great. And when you really see a great
There's not,
workout
and
after
there's not a
film
lot
that
of it
really
either.
isn't that great. No, there isn't. And when you combine the two together, it's like, okay, I see the film, it's not very good, but then I see this testing, and it's superb. How do you parse that out? Well, you go back and you look at the film with that new information and try and look at it with a fresh lens and see, okay, how can I see this as a projection? How can I see this as I can develop this guy because I saw this, this, and this, and now I'm really seeing those little nuances on tape to make me think, okay, I can take care of it. That's why the combine and athletic testing is about 25% of the puzzle, because you can learn a lot about things that you can't necessarily gauge from tape consistently. I mean, Kyle Hamilton is an absolute like alien in the back end of a secondary, and he ran a 4.6. Like, it doesn't really matter that he ran a 4.6 because everything else is there. He has the explosion, he has the 10-yard split. He just doesn't have that great straight line speed, which you don't really need. It's great, but he's not a track guy. Like, on the field, he just plays really fast. And being able to parse those things out, I think, is incredibly important, which is why athletic testing is meaningful, but you can't use it as the end-all, be-all. And we can translate that right into running back Kyron Williams from Notre Dame, who had one of the worst combine performances of recent memory. His relative athletic score is at about a 17th percentile. He ran like an 8th percentile 40 for his size at 4.72, 5'9", like 200 pounds. He wasn't ever a fast guy. He just needed to run a 4.6 and test decent athletically because he's a great pass catcher out of the backfield. He can be a true 3-down back because he's a great pass protector, great at running routes, catching the football. But with that kind of athletic testing, it's like, oh, are we going to be able to trust this guy in the NFL in the open field?
And that'll drive him down.
It's worrisome. It's very worrisome when you see that kind of athletic testing with a guy you had athletic questions about. Yeah, it's a scary proposition to really want to invest high capital in Kyron Williams now, because it was a fast track. Like, there were records set across the board for position groups. Overall, like, average 40 time was the fastest ever at the combine. This is the first year they've got to use that new surface. Everybody said it was a really, really fast track. Well, if it's a fast track and you're running slow on it, it raises even more questions.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. And we know
what happens when you go to Soldier Field and run on the slowest track in the league. Right. You're going to be even slower. It's going to be like you have cement blocks on your feet.
Well, and we know in the past there have been some physical freaks that tested great at the combine, but just never made the step into the NFL where they succeeded. You've got to look at both, not only the physical testing, but the film. Are they coachable? If you see stuff that you think you can fix, and or raise that bar. If not, drop them down the draft board. And if anything, there's a bunch of guys that enter the draft that don't get drafted at all. So, and evaluating who hits and who doesn't. That's why some of those folks get paid some good money for that.
It really is. Deshaun, who was one person that really disappointed you?
Oh, disappointed. I'm not sure if I've seen anybody that really, really disappointed me too much. I will say I was hoping Ruckett would run a little faster than what he did. I think Ruckett ended up running like a 4.87 or like a 4.85 or something like that. The tight end from Ohio State. I was hoping he would run a bit faster, but he didn't. But honestly, I don't really think that's his game. Like, I was just kind of hoping. I think mostly for guys that I was looking out for. Oh, Brandon Smith too. I was hoping he would run a little faster. I mean, on his tape, this guy's like electric. So I thought he would run like a 4.4, maybe something crazy. But I think he ended up running like a late 4.5, maybe like a 4.5, which is still fast. But I thought I would see like some extra like electric like testing coming out of him. We didn't really see that. But some guys, Leo Chenal from Wisconsin, his 4.5, I think it was 4.52, really surprised me because I did not expect him to be that kind of athlete, like, at all. So, like, that was really, really good for him. I had him as like a thumper in the middle, like a run defender. I thought maybe he might struggle a little bit in coverage, but if he can move side on the sideline, he can have some of that speed, maybe convert that into some agility. Like, he can have a chance to be a really good linebacker. I had Chad Muma. I had above him, but just given that athletic testing, you might have to go back and revisit and kind of redo those rankings.
Yeah, Chanel's an
Also,
interesting guy.
Boye
I thought
Mafe.
he was going to be.
What about
I thought Chanel was going to be like a.
Just letting you know that's the man. Boye Mafe. I just thought I should put his name out there. That's the man right there.
Oh, we'll talk about Mafe here in a second. I love Mafe, and my predictions came true on him. Chanel, I thought was going to be a Dante Hightower, where he was going to really be a phenomenal in the box guy and a real versatile chess piece for a defense. But even though the athletic testing was great, and I applaud him for that, I did not necessarily see all that coming. He's still really stiff in the hips, and that worries me long-term with his projection on as a true 3-down guy, unless you want to transition him into a pass rusher, which he did have a lot of success at, having a grade of over, I think it was 89.9 this past year at Wisconsin as a pass rusher. Just awesome stuff. He led the team in sacks at 8, had, I think, 45 pressures. The guy can rush the passer, and he's a great and effective blitzer, too. So you kind of encompass all that. He could go late first. Probably a second-round type player just because of the limitation in pass coverage and how little that people truly value that on-ball linebacker in comparison to the off-ball and how today's game is trending. But we brought Mafe was brought up by Deshaun. Let me tell you, I thought Boye Mafe was going to test like Danielle Hunter, and he did. He ran faster than Danielle Hunter. He jumped higher than Danielle Hunter, and he was short on the broad jump just a little bit. The 10-yard split was just a shade slower than Hunter as well. Boye Mafe is an exciting player, and he's an absolute athletic freak. You can play him standing up. You can play him with his hand in the dirt. In 330 total snaps this past year, and it was about 160 pass rushing snaps, 40 pressures, and 6 sacks. And that doesn't necessarily have to do with the fact that Mafe is bad. Mafe is really good, but Minnesota just likes to rotate out their defensive linemen. He's going to be a stud for whoever takes him here this next year moving forward.
Well, they love to rotate their defensive linemen. We don't know that about the new regime yet.
No, the University of Minnesota.
Oh, gotcha.
Bonito and Walker, I think they tested better than what I thought they were. I think this defensive line class in its entirety was a lot more athletic than I thought they would be. I knew the class was deep, but I thought it was a little bit more variety. But a lot of guys tested a lot better than I thought they were. I mean, I knew like Ojabo was super athletic. I knew the top guys were like super athletic, but some of these mid-round guys, excluding Myjai Sanders, all tested pretty well, better than what I thought.
Does that affect
Oh,
their draft status much when you consider that you still have the same finite number of players that are going into the draft?
Mm-hmm. So I think what happens now is that so I tweeted out, I said, this is a really good year to have great coaches because no matter where you're picking this top 75, you're getting like an athlete at some position who may or may not be raw, but the physical attributes are there. And if you have great coaches, you're going to get a good player. I think that is especially true for the defensive line class. I think what we're going to see is that we're going to see a couple go off. We're going to see the QBs go for a run because they're all going to maybe drop to like the teens or whatever. But then I think you're going to see edge rusher after edge rusher after edge rusher in like that 20 to like 40 range. So I think you're really going to see these guys go off the board like one after another. I think Daniel Jeremiah had tweeted it out. I think he said he had like 8 or 9 of them in his top, 75 or something like that. And I think like all those guys will be gone. Yeah, I think all those guys will be gone by like the mid-second round. It's insane.
Yeah, and the worst of that group is Kingsley Enagbare, who tested absolutely atrocious this past week, which is really disappointing. Very good football player, high motor, showed some athleticism on tape, but then he just tested
miserable.
He ran a 5 flat.
Wow.
You're an edge rusher who weighs 258 pounds. You can't run a 5 flat. You just can't do that.
Not unless you're, The whole thing about an edge rusher is how that first 10 split. How quickly can you get there? But
The 10 split wasn't good either.
that's bad. Well, now what's good about those players that did not do well, say, hey, they had a cold, starting to get the flu, whatever. They have their pro days to make up for that. And hopefully they do that if they want to get their draft stock back to where it should be. Same with guys that decline to do certain tests during the combine.
We had a lot of those. There were players that were complaining about the schedules. A lot of guys didn't bench. A lot of guys didn't do short on 3-cone because they kind of combined everything onto one day instead of splitting it up. So we're going to see a lot more stuff come out at pro days, just like we have in the past couple years because of COVID-19. And it's going to make things a little bit challenging.
Now, you wanted to go over a whole list of players, starting with Ed's Jermaine Johnson.
No, I want to just show you this chart, mainly because it's just kind of who pundits have been picking for the Minnesota Vikings over the past month, because I've been tracking it every single week. And Jermaine Johnson's one of those guys. He is one of 4 players so far that I've tracked that has only been selected one time. Him, Tyler Linderbaum, Malik Willis, and Travon Walker have all been selected one time by national pundits. The big theme here has been cornerback. Derek Stingley Jr. has been selected a record so far 6 times by pundits across the board. Trent McDuffie has been selected 4 times. Sauce Gardner has been selected 3. George Karlaftis, the edge rusher, has also been selected 3 times. We're looking at a really good group of players in this class. I see what you're doing, Dave. Okay.
You see what I'm doing? What am I doing?
Yes, I do. You're messing with my spreadsheet is what you're doing.
Yes, I am.
As Dave kind of tweaks with that, I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Jordan Davis. And I think we have to talk about Jordan Davis as a possible option for the Minnesota Vikings. And it's a complicated one because the man is 6'6", 341 pounds. He tested athletically as the second most athletic player per the relative athletic score composite of all time. And that data is dating back to 1987 when the first combine was held at the RCA Dome in Indianapolis. That's a big deal. He ran a 4.78 40 with a 1.68 10-yard split. He ran a 100th of a second slower than his teammate Devontae Wyatt, who weighs 50 pounds less than him. He ran almost as fast as Kyron Williams, and Williams weighs 150 pounds less than him. This is an absolute alien. He jumped at that weight 33 inches in the vertical, 10 feet 3 inches in the broad, and he moves lightning fast. Like, think peak Vince Wilfork back in the day with the New England Patriots, but better. And this guy has that kind of potential. Absolute game wrecker on first and second down. The only real question that he has with his game is, can he develop a pass rush? He only gets one pressure about every 29 pass rush snaps so far. And he had 3 sacks. Just not something that you can really project forward right now. But if he ever develops a pass rush, this guy's going to be an absolute game wrecker. And with how defenses are trending, having an elite 2-gapping tackle really provides freedom for your defense on the back end and gives your linebackers, who are more athletic than ever, the ability to shoot those gaps fast, quick, and be even more effective. Davis could potentially go top 10 now. There were questions if he would even go in the first round before the combine, but every question you had about his athleticism was answered, and now it's just about, can you project him as a pass rusher? Deshaun, what are you thinking about Jordan Davis? Because it's a very interesting one when you start talking to people across the board.
I feel like whenever you can compare a player to Vita Vea, you just take him. I mean, it's just simple as that. Like, whenever like somebody comes close to being Vita Vea, like, I don't think people realize like how dominant of a player that when he's on the field. Obviously, he has like some injury stuff, but when Vita Vea is on the field, he's like the Buccaneers like best defensive player, and that man is like an absolute like wrecking ball. So whenever a player comes close athletically, physically to Vita, you just take him. Like there's no way to argue that pick. Like that's a good pick. Like when you have guys like this come around, you take them and you teach them how to pass rush. And if you can't teach them how to pass rush, you get fired and hire someone who does teach them how to pass rush. Because you can't waste the talent like that.
All right. What Tyler was complaining about, I was hiding some columns, but there is Tyler's spreadsheet right there. So you can see everybody that he was highlighted, from Jermaine Johnson, Tyler Linderbaum, Derek Stingley Jr., George Karlaftis, Trent McDuffie, Andrew Booth, Sauce Gardner, which is Ahmed.
Ahmed. I think it's Ahmed.
Ahmed
Gardner, yeah.
Ahmed, Sauce Gardner, and Malik Willis and Trayvon Walker. Just to know what I was doing over there. Giving Tyler a heart attack because I was hiding columns. You're muted. Try again,
All
Tyler.
right.
There you go.
There we go. We're back. Yeah. Well, I have to cough because COVID still. So, that sheet is something I've been using to track as I do the mock draft roundups for the Vikings Wire, which I'll have a new one coming out this week. And that this chart, it has been updated to include that. So Derek Stingley Jr. is the most popular choice so far with pundits, which really shouldn't be that big of a surprise because of his talent. But his talent is also worrisome because he hasn't shown that high ceiling since 2019. He's had a really rough go as far as injuries, a couple foot injuries, a hamstring, and he had a Lisfranc surgery in November. And Lisfrancs have been known to kind of linger for years and years. So I'll be honest, I'm a little worried about Derek Stingley Jr. I don't know what I'm getting with him. I don't know if he's ever going to stay completely healthy. A Lisfranc injury ended Santonio Holmes' career at the age of 28, and he was a fringe all-pro receiver for the Steelers and the Jets. Like it's not nothing. They can come back. So
Well, we've got a medical expert right here. Deshaun, what's a Lisfranc injury?
Oh, I'm not an orthopedic specialist, man. You better Google that. I don't know what that is.
It's a
if you're dying,
it's
if
a
you're dying,
broken
I got you.
foot.
But if you gotta...
Go ahead, Tyler.
It's a special. It's a broken bone in the middle of your foot that to kind of put.
My daughter
put it in
stepped
layman's
wrong.
terms, I guess.
She was into gymnastics and she stepped wrong, and where a tendon came across, say this is your foot, came across the middle, it ripped up a chunk of bone and snapped it right off. And she had to deal with that. They had to go in and put it back in place. She had to be in a walking boot forever. And it's not a pleasant injury whatsoever. And it's got to heal right. And whether you can do that, whether you have good medical folks that work with that, is going to be important. Yes.
Isn't this what Derrick
And
Henry
as the
had?
Vikings saw today,
he had a quarterback a couple months later, the same season? Or was it? It must have been a less severe version. I'm pretty sure that's what Derrick Henry had.
Mm-hmm. But you can come back from it relatively quick, but that doesn't mean you're nearly as effective. And for me, that's the worrisome part, especially with the fact that he never regained that 2019 form. I remember when Jake Browning, former Viking practice squad great, was the freshman quarterback at Washington in 2016. He had his best year. He hurt his shoulder. He never got better from that point on. And when you see a case study like that, an injury just kind of sends that kind of spiral. Derek Stingley has not come close to performing what he did in 2019. If he would have been drafted in 2019, he'd probably go second overall after Joe Burrow. Like, that's how good that tape was. You're talking like Revis Island kind of stuff. And now you just don't know. And with what the talent's going to be at pick 12, is Kwesi going to really want to take that chance? Because if you hit, you get a Darrelle Revis, Jalen Ramsey. If you miss, it's a huge risk. So that it's going to be a tough conundrum. Deshaun, before we kind of move on, because we need to get to a mock draft for the people here this week. Anybody else you really want to talk about that stood out to you at the combine?
Any running backs? Bill Baumgartner talked about 3 running backs under contract. Actually, there's 4, Bill, 5 if you include C.J. Ham, that are under contract.
6 if you include Kellen Mond.
But was there any running backs that stood out? That was the one spot that I didn't see anything outstanding.
I didn't.
Even with
I didn't watch
Cook's
any
little
running
brother.
backs
That was
this time around.
There was one
Right.
guy that really stood out to me, and he's going to be a late round guy. His name is Pierre Strong Jr., South Dakota State. When I watched him throughout the course of the year, he dominated Colorado State in week 1, really pulverizing that Rams defense. But he also outran everybody in the FCS, and I wasn't quite sure how good that speed was. I knew his vision was good. He had the ability to break off and bounce off of tacklers. But does he have a dominant athletic trait? I wasn't 100% sure. And the guy in his career averaged 7.3 yards a carry. His freshman year, he averaged 9.3 on 116 carries. He had 2 other seasons over 7. And the only season where he was under 7 was at 5.3, and that was the COVID-shortened spring season earlier this year. Like, this guy can play football. And I related him to what Elijah Mitchell's rookie year was this past year, that you're going to take him late in the draft. He's going to come in. He's going to be a stalwart guy. And then Pierre Strong just came in and casually ran a 4.37. He can scoot
Casually.
at 5'11", like 209 pounds. The guy is a tank, and I think that's a guy that if you want to take a shot on in round 6, he could come in and get you 1,000 yards right away.
Well, I think we're okay with running
Kyer
backs.
Elam.
Not worried about it.
That was
Yeah,
the guy
I
that
love
I was
Elam.
impressed with. Kyer Elam. I thought he was like the bigger cornerback that I thought would probably like have a hard time dealing with long speed, and I think he came in and ran a 4.39, which that's impressive. I like that. I had him as a second round corner. I think he may go late first now. So that's the guy that I was impressed with. One of the guys that personally, in my opinion, if Cousins stays around, I'm not a fan of picking at 12. So he was one of those trade back targets that I kind of liked, and I really like him now that he kind of answered a little bit of questions with the speed.
Cool.
Elam really got overlooked over the course of the process because of the evolution of Sauce Gardner, Stingley, and Andrew Booth Jr., but he's not on that same line. You're going to get value with him. But we're going to get to that mock draft here in a second. But, Dave, I think we have to take a moment to talk about our new sponsor.
Have you seen, where is it? Right there, our new logo up there.
Lake Monster Brewing. They're located in St. Paul. You can get their beer on site and in liquor stores throughout the Twin Cities. They do a really nice job of taking classic beer styles and putting their own subtle twist on it. They go from really that unique esoteric approach to really being approachable, and they do a great job of really drawing out flavors to make it a really unique and delicious experience for beer fans, and that's really what you want out of a craft beer. We will be there for night 2 of the draft, Friday, April 29th at 5:30 p.m. Central Time. We will be there live. We're gonna have giveaways. It's gonna be great beer. You're gonna get me talking a lot of draft, probably yelling at Matt for saying something to me. I don't know. We're going to have a good time. Dave is going to be having a blast producing from the truck, yelling at us for being idiots. If you watched any of our draft coverage last year, you know how passionate this site is and how much fun we have. And we are going to have a really good time at Lake Monster. Give them a shout out. I am working at bringing them in at my own liquor store, Top 10 Liquors in Osseo. So if you ever want to stop by and get some really good beer, I have a fantastic selection. We're going to be adding Lake Monster to that. It's going to be a really good time, and they've already been a fantastic partner for us, and it's only been 5 days. So Make sure you give them a shout if you are in Minnesota. Sean, you'll just have to come visit, go to a game, and then we can make sure we get you some delicious Lake Monster Brewing beer.
Someone
In the
mail me a
meantime,
box so I can do
gentlemen.
some product placement.
Well, I believe the brewer has to do that, so talk to Matt and we'll see what we can do. Same with you, Dave. All right.
Oh, trust me,
so,
I've already talked to
Dave,
him.
let's. Of course, I know you have. Let's fire up that mock draft machine, boys. We are going to have some fun here tonight. We're finally going to be able to do that mock draft that we haven't been able to do for the last couple of weeks. Just last week, Dave and I spent the whole time talking combine prospects, guys to really watch out for, and we ran out of time. We had to cut those prospects short because we were just so fired up talking about it. And I know you guys had a lot of great conversation the week prior while I was attending a wedding in Colorado. Which, Dave, I don't know if I told you.
I.e.,
that
read that getting drunk.
sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I only got kind of drunk once. Like, the elevation was awful, just awful.
Well, it speeds up that process
but it was
too.
Beautiful. Oh, it was beautiful. I'll say that much. Let's fire it up. We're gonna have some
All
fun.
right, we're going
these simulators.
We're going to draft for the Vikings tonight.
Well, let's hope so. Something to know with these
we were
simulators,
Ravens
guys.
fans.
They update
How many rounds?
Just 3. They update every week with prospect rankings and just general information that they receive throughout the league. So they're constantly upgrading these things, upgrading these simulators to try and be as accurate as possible. You're still going to find inaccuracies. You're going to find stuff that happens that's a little bit crazy, but you just kind of have to roll with the punches on it because it's a human element. It just is what it is. But we're kind of taking a look. Unfortunately, our boy Malik Willis is gone. Who
Yes,
had
I
the
see
best
that.
week I think I've ever seen at a combine. Not only did he interview great, not only did he throw really well, somebody caught him just showing the tremendous character that he has. When he thought nobody was watching, he was helping a homeless guy on the street.
Right.
Like
And you can't-
that's the man you want to bring home, Mom.
That's leadership,
guy-
and supposedly everybody likes him.
Yes.
And that's why I'm so high on him. If he's available when we draft, I think we should select him. We've got to find that quarterback sometime. I figure we got a 2-year window to build this team under the new regime. Hey, Jonas. And it could be this year, next year. We got to find that quarterback, and if Malik Willis is available, I'd take him. But that's Dave. Just Dave.
Yep.
And you know
Hey,
I
Tyler
love
would
round
take him
belly.
too.
So.
You don't...
I thought Kenny Pickett had a
speaking
pretty
of
nice
round-
week too, but that's just me.
Hey, we're
Pickett improved his stop.
Kenny Pickett, that he was a decent athlete. He didn't show me
my
anything
guy.
else. But I mean, I think we all know my thoughts on Kenny Pickett. We all know your thoughts. We won't fight about it today, but we'll find a time to really have that discussion again. Let's kind of take a look at the board. We've got
And-
Sauce Gardner,
Those
Trent
tiny head,
McDuffie,
dude.
Andrew Booth Jr. All available at cornerback. Your top edge rushers, Jermaine Johnson, David Ojabo. Let me take a look. See, those are your 2 best edge rushers. Garrett Wilson's available if we want to go the wide receiver route, which I said I would talk about here. Jordan Davis is available as well. So let's talk wide receivers. You need to have 3 in this league. You need to have 3 bona fide guys. Adam Thielen, you don't know how much you're going to be able to trust him moving forward. He's dealt with some really lingering injuries the past few years. He's got a big cap hit. This is a time where the Vikings may choose to move on from Adam Thielen. Try and get a 3rd-round pick back for him because his value may never be higher than it is right now. So you also need to prepare for the future. We saw some good things from Amir Smith-Marset. We saw some good things consistently from KJ Osborne. Is Osborne a 2? I don't know. Is ISM a 3? I don't know. These are questions that have yet to be answered, either yes or no. And you can project them out to be whatever. And we do that all the time. We're going to be spending a lot of the offseason really talking about those kind of projections. But when you have a guy like Garrett Wilson on the board, a Drake London, or my favorite wide receiver in this top group, Chris Olave, I think that you really need to think about receiver here at 12 because of what this offense asks you to do, running 3 wide all the time, that trying to surround your quarterback with as many weapons as possible, especially with Kirk likely not being the long-term answer at the position. And this is where the league is going. So adding a top flight receiver to pair opposite Justin Jefferson, especially when you're going to have to pay him this year and you're going to have to give him the big bucks, could be a really smart move for the long-term future of this team, even though it's not necessarily the biggest need in the world. Deshaun, when it comes to wide receiver, where do you sit on taking one at this point in the draft?
So just because of the success of wide receivers in their first years recently, if it's not like an immediate need, I would not take them at 12. Now, that being said, I do think you raise a valid point when saying, but going 3 wide all the time, you need probably about 5 receivers you can trust, and the Vikings don't have that. As of right now, you have 2 receivers that you trust. Thielen has an injury history. Osborne, you kind of trust him. You don't know if it's a 2, so that leaves 2 question marks. So I do believe that wide receiver is a need, but if you're not looking for your number 1 guy this season, I would not take them at 12.
Believe it or not, I concur with Deshaun. He is correct on this.
But
Could
I will
they?
say,
Yes.
there's been a lot of
They could build up the
Should
offense
they?
first
Right.
and forego defensive building. But we don't know.
This draft has a ton of speed at wide receiver, so a late round pick here, a late round pick in this draft, pair them with Keenan McCardell, and I think you get some solid results. Might not be that number 2 guy that you're really looking for, but I think you'll still get like a solid player maybe in round 3 or 4, if we like trade back and get a 4th round pick.
And you're still on mute. But while you're figuring out the mute button,
You know what, Dave? I've had enough of you. All right, I still have a little bit of that COVID brain. I'm figuring it out. Round 2 has really been the sweet spot for receivers over the past like decade or so. We've seen more success out of round 2 at the receiver spot than we have out of round 1. So you can still get a really good guy in that round 2 spot, especially since we talked about your Christian Watsons. We haven't talked about how good of a week Sky Moore had, and who Mateo just
Sky Moore.
Sky Moore came in taller than we thought, bigger than we thought, ran faster than we thought, and he's got bigger hands than Treylon Burks, who needs 4XL gloves to wear onto the field. Like,
damn.
This is a really deep receiver class, and you can get somebody really talented in that second round.
What
But
positions
we're not going to go that
do hand size actually correlate to mattering?
Anybody who touches the ball consistently.
Bingo. Wide receivers, quarterbacks in particular. It may help with a running back holding on to the ball. Anybody that touches and handles that ball, and think about it, if you got a bigger hand, that ball is smaller. It helps. So that is one of those physical traits you actually look for. You don't hear about wide receivers with tiny hands. You may hear about a quarterback with one, but you don't hear about wide receivers with tiny hands. So it's something to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm. And those hands are fantastic. Mateo, he was a great college player, and I don't disagree with that statement one bit. But we're going to kind of transition. We're not going to take wide receiver in round 1. So there's really, when you kind of take a look at this, there's 6 guys you can debate between. Sauce Gardner, Jermaine Johnson, David Ojabo, Trent McDuffie, Andrew Booth Jr., and probably Tyler Linderbaum. I love the idea of taking Jordan Davis. The way the roster sits right now, it's too redundant. We need to see what they're going to do with both Tomlinson and Pierce before we really think about a Jordan Davis here. When I look at these guys, I would personally narrow it down to 2. Sauce Gardner, David Ojabo. Those would be my 2 picks. Sauce is still a little stiff in the hips, but he's such a tremendous man cover corner, and he showed the requisite athleticism and speed to succeed in the NFL. And he's long, over 33-inch arms, 6'3", a little wiry, but that's okay. Jonas, that's an exception to the rule. Hunter Renfrow did have small hands, but you're always going to have that exception. And then Ojabo has the just the sky high ceiling. I've seen a couple people talk about him being higher on their board than Aiden Hutchinson. Hutchinson has a high ceiling and he has an incredibly low floor. Ojabo, you could argue, has a bigger ceiling than Hutchinson and potentially Kayvon Thibodeau, just because of how much of a freak he is and how he's still learning the game.
Mm-hmm.
So those would be the two guys I would be debating between. I do like Andrew Booth Jr. a lot, but I think with Sauce on the board, I don't think you can really say no to that. Deshaun, where are you leaning?
Just because of the recent work I've done on this free agency class, I actually really like the depth in this free agency class at corner. Hoping the Vikings can capitalize. We'll see what they do with the cap space. Jermaine Johnson is my guy. I would lean there. I think he's an incredible athlete. I think he actually ends up being one of the better edge rushers in this class when it's all said and done. But cannot argue with Sauce Gardner. You just can't. Having cornerback, either one, having a edge rusher or a cornerback on a rookie contract being like a top tier player is just a tremendous help to your football team. So really, you can't go wrong with either one. But I would probably go corner just because of how decimated our corner room is. And if we're not able to really bring anybody in, at least at edge, we have something. Like we have Hunter and we have like 3 guys waiting in the wind to see what they can do. At corner, it's Cam Dantzler and that's it. Well, and Harrison Hand. So
yeah,
if you can't bring anybody,
don't forget the legend Chris Boyd.
And Sauce Gardner it is.
And I think with the Vikings, because of how diverse their needs are, Dave, I don't know if you're logged in under me, but that's okay. We don't need to do trades tonight.
I did beforehand. See, here they
come. There it is. All right. The big thing with the Vikings, they can really take whatever they want, whenever they want, because whoever they take, it's pretty much going to be a need. The only position that they don't need is shockingly offensive tackle. You can argue that they need to take a running back because Alexander Madison's going to be gone after this year. Dalvin Cook may be gone after this year. Tight end only has really one stalwart guy that you can count on to do any kind of production next year. We talked about wide receiver. Edge is decimated. Defensive tackle is iffy, especially with the future of those guys currently on the roster. Linebacker is barren. Corner is barren. Safety has question marks all over the board, especially with the future of Harrison Smith. Whoever is there, if they're going to take a good player, you can argue that it's a need.
All right, this trade offer is from the Sea Chickens. They're offering us to move up 5 picks and give them their 5th, or give our pick at 46 and our 5th round choice. Answer to that is no, especially when I don't know who's available on the board.
Mm-hmm. And that's the tough part.
And here we go. Trade down 10 spots and pick up the Dallas Cowboy 5th.
Nah,
we're gonna keep
we are not Rick Spielman.
All right,
Steve, I gotta say, I've seen you comment a few times. Every time I see you comment, I think Arizona Cardinals GM Steve Keim is in here, and I think that's really cool. So we're gonna call you Steve Keim from now on. Let's take a look at who we got. Jaquan Brisker, safety, Penn State, had a really nice week of testing. Christian Harris, athletic freak, questions about his technical ability and football IQ. Kenneth Walker, we'll kind of ignore the running back position for now. Sam Howell's an interesting one. DeMarvin Leal also is interesting. He's kind of a tweener. Jalen Petre, we've talked about ad nauseum on this show, especially last week. Mm-hmm. I love Petre and what he can do. He's a more diverse version of Jamal Adams, where he's not an edge rusher. He plays coverage too, and he's good at it. Kyer Elam's there. Tyler Smith is an offensive tackle that's mean, nasty, and he's a mauler. He's also got requisite athleticism. A lot of people want to play him at guard because of his mentality and just how physically imposing he is. So he could be an option as well. Bernard Raymond, I don't expect to be here, but nerds love him because he's an analytics guy, but he's also going to be 25 years old in May. That's worrisome for a guy that is still raw as an offensive tackle. So there's a lot of different things. Jonas Howell at 46 could be nice. I don't know how I feel about Howell yet, but he's one of these guys that there's just so many questions that you have to answer, and I don't know. Deshaun, when you look at the board, who's jumping out to you right away?
Don't worry about me. I'm looking at linemen.
I think I'm a little higher on Sam Howell just because I watched that QB school video and like his mechanics are there. Now, I really liked Howell to the Saints with Sean Payton was there. I thought if there was anybody that could fix him, it would be Sean Payton. But I mean, if you give Howell a year behind Kirk Cousins, a year in the system with Kevin O'Connell, there might be something there. And then he has the extra running ability. But I think what I was thinking about with the system, the McVay system doesn't really call for any of the extra quarterback stuff. It doesn't call for anybody to be like a massive playmaker. It just kind of calls for you to be an accurate quarterback, which Sam Howell might not be all the time or most of the time. So outside of him, I think I would look linebacker. There's Chad Muma. There's Sky Moore, which we talked about would be a solid pick, second round wide receiver. There's also another linebacker in Christian Harris. This is a tough one for real. Because if you're keeping Cousins and you're really looking to get that QB of the future now, because next season you're not going to have a shot at it. With Kirk Cousins here and improved offensive play, we're not going to have a shot at a top tier quarterback. So there's that. There's linebacker. There's wide receiver. I think I would probably go linebacker. Continue to.
Yeah,
I think I would go.
That's
I'll probably go
defense
again.
I would take Christian Harris. I would take the risk with the athleticism because the athleticism is phenomenal. Ran 4.4 4.40, followed it up with a 4.46. He has a lot of room to grow from the mental aspect. He can improve his vision. He can improve his technique, his angles. But you can't argue with the athlete, and we need guys who can run in space. And this is somebody I would want to take a risk on. And in the second round, a guy who seemed primed to be a top 15, top 20 pick going into the year. He did not have the greatest year for Alabama. Alabama guys translate, especially the hyper athlete ones. I think this would be a great route to go, and you're going to fill a tremendous need. He can learn from Eric Kendricks for a year before really taking over. Dan Watson won a couple picks earlier to the Falcons, so unfortunately we were not able to get him in this simulation. I would not be opposed to doubling up on corner with Elam, but I'm kind of in the area where I would probably go Christian Harris. Mateo, I think Clark is a very good player. I also don't necessarily think that he would be a great value here. I think if you don't go linebacker here, you wait till round 3, then you can take that guy and feel really comfortable about it. He showed a lot at the Senior Bowl with his intelligence, his athleticism. So he's going to be a very good player. Deshaun, what do you think about Christian Harris?
So I definitely like the athleticism part of it. It depends what the assignment or what this defense, the whole 5-2 thing, how they play their linebackers and how they value their safeties a little bit more. Jalen Petrie might be the move here, just because he can play at all 3 levels of the defense and play early and play often. Really, I don't think you can go wrong with either one, Harris or Petrie. Also, Muma, just because he's incredibly intelligent. I love the way he plays the game. Reminds me a lot of his former teammate, Logan Wilson, who was just with the Bengals that went to the Super Bowl. Don't think you can go wrong with either one of those 3. One of those 3 guys would be my pick for sure.
I'm with you on Petrie. Let's do it. Jalen Petrie, newest Minnesota Viking in this simulation. It's about 6 down, Dave.
There's my favorite out of that bunch.
Christian Harris?
Yeah, linebacker. If not, really, there's the guy that got my heart running. But, all right, we'll go with the safety.
The big issue for me with Leal is he is best on the interior, but he's too small to really be a full-time interior guy. unless you think he's going to become Aaron Donald. And I don't
Too
think he's gonna
small.
become Aaron Donald.
Was it Leo?
If you wanted to play full time on the interior, he's like
6'5",
6'4", 285.
They had
He's
him
6'4",
listed at
285.
over 300. I
He's
may be
not
thinking of
300.
the guard. The guard that was on there is the one I was talking about.
You're talking Kenyon Green, the other A&M player. Yeah.
All right.
I was thinking Leo, the defensive end. All right, so we have my son Carson Strong at the top of the board. That's an easy selection. We can just go home now. But when you look at everybody else available, we did not take linebackers, so Leo Chenal is an option. Brian Asamoah is an athletic guy from Oklahoma. Darian Beavers from Cincinnati isn't bad either. Arnold Ebiketie tested out of his mind. Drake Jackson is an interesting guy as well. Jalen Weidermeyer, if you want to go tight end. Channing Tisdall will probably not be here. He's probably going to go top 40 with his projection and his just insane athleticism. A lot of really good players here. Jeremy Ruckert, who I've talked about ad nauseum on the show and how well he's performed during the process. When I take a look at this group, I'd be hard-pressed not to take an edge rusher right now. And I would probably go Drake Jackson, who bulked up with a lot of really good weight and still looks to be as explosive as he was at USC. We're going to see more from him at his pro day. He is not as lean as he was as far as what his playing weight was last year. So those numbers are really going to mean something because he put on 15 pounds of muscle, like good, solid weight. But as Jonas mentioned, Carson Strong is available. And Carson Strong is one of my favorite prospects in this draft. I absolutely love him. I don't care if he's a pocket passer. He's kind of stationary. He is mobile, similar to how Dan Marino was mobile, and he can slide away from pressure. That's good enough for me. Looks like we lost to Sean here, Dave. But as you're kind of looking at some of these guys.
I'm looking at
who
some
do you
of
like?
these guys and checking out. I'm okay with Strong if that's it's a shot. We need to get a shot to find that quarterback. No matter who it is, we need that shot. And the only one right here in the third round would be Carson Strong. He would compete, obviously, with Mond to see how well they do. And probably, if we're at this point, Kirk Cousins is still probably our quarterback for at least this season. We'll find out about Kirk Cousins. It's March 16th is the start of the new league year. I shouldn't say we'll find out. We'll find out. The quarterback carousel will start by then. It's all going to start with Aaron Rodgers. Then it's going to start rolling. Russell Wilson, other big name quarterbacks. If they start moving everywhere, that changes draft needs for folks. Kirk Cousins obviously could be one of those that moves, and that can wait all the way up into the draft. So we don't know. If you want to take Carson Strong right here, I have no objections.
Let's do it. Let's take Carson Strong. One thing that's really interesting about Strong, Dave, that came out at the combine, he's finding more velocity in his throwing motion because he's finally able to use his base. He completed 70% of his passes through over 30 touchdowns and 41 touchdowns, I believe, and completed 70% of his passes.
Based on, we're fading in. I don't know if it's my internet or yours. Could be mine. And there's Deshaun. Oh.
No, I'm back. I
Okay.
got booted. It was weird.
That could
So,
be the
as I was-
Russians. We'll blame it on the Russians.
Yeah, it's the Russians' fault. So he's discovering more power in his throwing motion because he basically threw for 4,000 yards at 70% completion and 40-plus touchdowns with his arm. Not using a base, just using his arm.
Didn't he have an
was-
injury? It was one of the quarterbacks
Yeah.
I was hearing had an injury, and now that that's healed, they're learning to drive off. I don't remember if it's right leg, left leg. Learning to drive
It was
more,
right leg,
step
and it was
into more.
Carson Strong.
Okay. and they're getting
Yep.
better because of it, and that's a good thing. Could deal with that, and that may be, if this actually happened, that may be the steal of the draft right there.
I don't care that he's not a runner. I think he would be just fine being a pocket passer because of his ability to avoid rushers and his ability
be able to
sense
move
pressure.
left
Yeah.
or right.
Well,
Watch
Dan
to help
Marino
your lineman.
Dan Marino was the 7th most mobile quarterback on those NFL top 10 lists because of how well he maneuvered in the pocket. You don't have to be a runner to be mobile. And that's what Carson Strong brings to the table.
The greatest of all time, Tom Brady, was that way. The
Yep.
greatest before that
You just get
was that way.
Yep. You get good at it and you maneuver in the pocket. Brett Favre was a master at it for 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't have to be a runner to be mobile. And I think Carson Strong and the 2 defenders we got in this class to really beef up that secondary. Oh,
Steve
baby.
is right on this.
This is a really, really exciting draft. Steve, you're right. But here's the weird thing that I kind of discovered as I was going through some research. Quarterbacks don't get injured when running the football. They get injured in the pocket. So
Really?
you're actually more likely to get injured as a true pocket passer than you are as a running quarterback, which I found very interesting, but that's the data right now. Runners can control their narrative most of the time when it comes to getting hit. They can run out of bounds, they can slide. When you're in the pocket
They
and you're
can
Kirk Cousins and you just
Step
collapse,
and hit.
you're getting
partial
hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting thing. But Dave, it's been a really good show. We got a lot of really good discussion. We're going to be back next week. But throughout the rest of the week, I know we've got a really nice lineup. What do we have going on?
What we have going on is tomorrow night we have In the Huddle again. That's 2 weeks in a row, people. Celebrate. Woohoo! The guys, Miles and Jason, will be here talking stuff. We may have some guests we don't know. I know Nick Olson. This is a personal plea. You've got your new microphone. Come join us. Eric Eager, if the great doctor, if you can find the time, please come join us. It should be a great show. Wednesday, of course, we have Vikings Happy Hour. Should be on this week, I think, is Ben Gessling, because he had jury duty last week and had to move. I think he's going to be on this week. Speaking of Vikings Happy Hour, we have, with our partner, Lake Monster, a current giveaway going. Right now, if you find this tweet, CTP giveaway, and you should see it from anybody of the CTP, Climb in a Pocket personalities have retweeted it. It's on there. You can find it. If all you have to do is follow Climb in the Pocket, follow Lake Monster Brewing, right? At Lake Monster Brew. I know I misspelled it a couple times on the last 2 shows. I apologize for that. That is the correct way to do it. Enter by noon on Wednesday, and you have a chance to win this cool hat, which I could use, right? And that mini sign that would go great right back here, right? I can't get it because I'm part of the program, but it would go great right back here. And it would go fantastic in your man cave or lady cave. Don't want to let out the women. I know there are some women that absolutely love Vikings football and good beer. But best off about Lake Monster Brewing is the beer. Those guys are outstanding. All my friends up in Minneapolis are telling me, Dave, it's great. And they're listing off different types, whether it be depth charge or, I love the IPAs. I love stouts. They do all the traditional beers, wheat beers, just your normal lagers, stuff. They've got it all. But all you've got to do here is just follow Climb in the Pocket, follow Lake Brew, and then retransmit the post, and you are entered. And that's even before we talk about like, subscribe, and ring the bell for the shows.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
that's Wednesday. Thursday, I don't know if we have a show. Flip and Eric haven't contacted me yet this week. I don't know, but guaranteed Saturday, Darren and I will continue with 2 old bloggers. We are on to our next position group. I think we have 2 left. 1 more in the offense, and then special teams, and then whatever comes up. In between, we'll find 3 themes that are relevant to talk about in depth.
Perfect. Well, Dave, great show. Thank you for guiding us here this week. From Deshaun, who unfortunately experienced a power outage and wasn't able to finish out, from Dave and myself, enjoy the last week of somewhat normalcy in the NFL, because come Monday is the legal tampering period. It's going to be a really, really big time, and a lot is going to change for the Minnesota Vikings. Until then, Skol Vikings, drink some Lake Monster.
Absolutely, and turn in your Mondays purple. Skol! Climb in the Pocket thanks you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, ring the bell, and if you're listening, rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skol!